And we'll be looking today at the cloud version of the software. I also have the desktop version queued up in case we want to talk about that. The cloud version is exactly the same in terms of substance. We just took all the tabs from the top and we've now put them down the left side along with the menus that were in each tab. The only other changes are that there is now a file manager, and we've moved the settings to a separate page along with our support and program help and export if you want to export to Excel or a CSV file. So that has changed a little bit just to make it easier to access. Let me just talk about the new file manager feature. When you are in the cloud and you have the cloud version, all of the files then are saved in the cloud. And if you have the firm version, you would have all of the firm's files here as well, the other attorneys, the other professionals in your firm. Shared files now refers to the ones that the client entered the data. So when you are creating a new file, you can either start a new file where you will be entering the data, or you can register the client for them to enter the data in the program. And another new feature that we have is that we now have a file name, and the file name can be any file name that you want to give it. And then all the files for that case will be in the same file name, have the same case name, so you can search for them easily. And in our new file manager, we have a search feature. So if I say sample, it's going to show me all the sample files. And I can do the same for firm files, or I can search by the person, the professional. So I can select which professional. This is not my law firm account. This is my family law software rep account. So I only have my files here. And then you can also archive. So you can go down to action, click on the 3 dots next to your file. You can rename it. You can rename the case. So here we didn't put in a case name. I can rename this one. That is now also going to be sample. So now I have another case in the sample case name. And I can also look at the history, which is really cool if I forgot to write down how much time I spent on a file. So I can look at the history of the file and get that information. And then I also can archive. I can download it if I want to use the desktop. So this is interesting. If you do not have the firm version, the individual cloud version only allows one user at a time. So one way to manage this is to have, say, support staff on the desktop, and then they can download and upload the files. They have to remember to upload them after they've been playing with them, or otherwise it won't appear again in the cloud files. And I can also email the file to somebody, which is great for collaborative cases. Very easy to share a file. Okay, so that is our new case file manager. And let's now talk about a new case. If I were to have sent the client the link to enter the data themselves, I can go to client data entry in enter data page. And I can go down to data as the client sees it. I'm going to just open a shared file that has client data so that you can see what that would look like. This is now what your clients are going to see when they are entering the data. And they can open each section, put in the information, and then they close the section up and say that part's done, go to the next section, and they can just put in all of their information. When they're done, they can then have an email sent to you that they're done, they're ready for you to look at the file. And then you can just open it from the shared file in the file manager and start working on it. Theoretically, they've entered the data perfectly, and all you have to do is go to reports and generate, for example, the declarations with their information. So in this schedule of asset and debt, you can see everything is filled out automatically. And then, in fact, in this file, they didn't put any real assets in here. Here they have a JP Morgan and a Bitcoin. They've got that stuff in there, pension. So this is all they have. You can also go and start filling out judicial council forms, support guidelines, reports, what some people in California might call a DISO report. I'm sure none of our family law software users would call it that. And in fact, we have our own worksheet, which is a little easier way to see the data and how the support calculation works, because it's very linear and it gives you the whole calculation and coming down to the bottom line of what's the child support and spousal support amounts based on monthly or annual. Now, the thing is, when they do the data entry, it's never exactly accurate, because that's just how it works. That's how clients are. So what I do when I get the notification that I have their data, that their data is ready, I go into the reports, more reports, and here we have 3 pages for lawyers, for planners, and graphs. And there's a list of reports in each one. On the planners page, these check boxes will enable you to do multiple reports and print them as one report or one PDF. So what I will do is I will do report 6, the budget report, and report 17, the property statement report. And the property statement is all the assets and debts, and the budget report is all the income and expense. And those 2 reports then encapsulate everything that the client has entered. I will go to each report, take a gander at it. What information did they give me? What's missing? What do I not know? What do I have to tell them they have to continue to do? And then I will also set options. So on all our reports, you can set report options, and that is context sensitive. So that will be different for each report. So for this report, which is a budget report, all the income and expense, maybe I just want to show income, or maybe I just want to show expenses. Maybe I want to show both parties, but maybe I only want to show one party. So I can set the options. It doesn't change any of the data. It just changes what will show on the report. And then I will do the same for the other report. So report 17, the property statement report. And then I will PDF, and the PDF link is at the top right corner of your screen. And I click on PDF, and it will now make a PDF of that report and be able to be there for you to look at. And then, of course, you can send that report, save it to the client's file, and send it to the client. Here's everything you've entered. Let me know if there's any changes. Now, when it comes to changes, there's a couple of things that you should know. Number one, clients we can allow them to go back into the shared file, to the client data entry file, and just fix whatever is wrong, enter whatever they didn't enter. We do not, however, have redlining or revision marking on our in our program. So I, being sort of a control freak, like to just have them tell me what the changes are. And what I would do is lock their file so they can't go in and make any changes to it. They have to get the changes to me so that I can make the changes. Maybe later in the case, I would unlock it to allow them to do updates or something. And this is a really cool feature for that purpose. Okay. And then I make the changes by going into enter data and making any changes that there are there in the data. Very simple to make the changes. So maybe on this business, let's go down to something that is a little more. So the current value on the property, I had it 250, maybe it's 285. Is there anything in California that's 285? That is now the value. I've changed it for the file. And I can go in and make any changes that are needed very simply in the data entry. So let's talk a little more about data entry. When we're entering data, we can put in footnotes, and the clients, when they're entering data, can put in footnotes. And that can be very helpful because those are the things, you know, that they made a little asterisk and wrote down the side of the page and on the back. But now it's going to be in typed in so that you can see what it, you know, what it says and you can read it. Now you can also make a footnote into a reminder, which will not print as a footnote. And what that allows us to do is go to the footnotes report. So I can go into reports and go to more reports. And there are footnotes at the top of the planner's page on the more reports, or on the lawyer's page, it's at the very bottom. And we can go to view footnotes. And here we have 2 footnotes and a reminder. Maybe I want to change that. That should have been a reminder. And I can put that now as a reminder. Or I can change this one, take out any private text, you know, and make it back into a footnote. So you can put notes like double check this. I think that she is looking at the wrong numbers, or he's lying, or she's imagining this one. So you can put in any private notes. No one will see them unless you print this footnotes and reminder report. And when the clients are entering data, they have the ability. So let's go into an asset, for example, and we'll go into this car. They can put in a footnote. Okay. Now, what they don't have here that we have in our data for most of the items, but some do, is the more info. That's the green box with the 3 dots. That's more information. And that is context sensitive. What that really means is that everywhere that you're looking at more information, depending on where you are in the program, what asset, expense, income, or liability you're looking at, it's going to ask you questions, have fields for information related to that piece of information. So here we're in the personal items, and I can say that this is a vehicle, and I put in the value, but I can also put in the title, and I can put if there's a lien and all the stuff related to that information. And if I go into a different piece of information, like let's look at real estate, because that can be fairly complicated. And if I go into more information here, now we have a whole bunch of information. Purchase information. What was the basis? Appreciation. Let's make this owned today. So now we have even more options. How are we going to divide it? Let's look at the separate property piece of it. And here you'll see we have a Moore Marsden calculation. Now, when the clients are entering data, they don't have all of this more info. They have some, but they don't have like Moore Marsden because they wouldn't understand that. The legal community barely understands it, or we wouldn't keep litigating it. So the Moore Marsden calculation is here automatically. And then we also can make the result be part of the property allocations. So we don't really have the data in here for a separate. I'm not going to spend the time right now to do that, but you can put in the fair market value, loan balance at the date of purchase, and at the date of marriage, and then again at the date of division is the current value amount. And that will automatically give you a Moore Marsden calculation. Now, this will also flow the income and expense, and the assets and debts will flow to the support calculation. Any income or tax ramifications will be part of that calculation. So for each piece of information, when I'm entering the data myself, I like to start with assets and debts, because if I do, then the cash flow from it will automatically be part of the income and expense piece. And that way, I only have to enter data once. I only have to look at a piece of paper once to enter the information, and I'm good to go. So let's just for a moment look at the support data page. And here again, we have a DISO format page data entry. And then we have two family law software pages. We have the complete page, which is all of the pieces of information that go into an accurate and complete support calculation. And we also have a quick page, which is for your less complicated cases where there's only one wage for each party. You don't have a lot of income from other sources, and it's pretty simple. Now, when it comes to the spousal support amount, we do have all the different county formulas. You can use them, and it will automatically put in the amount. So in this case, I guess we gave mom here a little too much income. So we can take out some later. Say that that's going to come out for right now. And now we have a maintenance amount, and under the different counties, they would be different amounts because the formulas are different. But then for a non-guideline, non-formula amount, like if it's not a temporary support, we can go to the analysis tab, and I'll show you that in just a minute, and really look at what maintenance should look like. Let's put some gross wages back in here for each of them. And why don't we give this person a little more wages? Okay, so now when it comes down to it, what are we going to do for the data? We can look at bonus reports. We can do bonus report for the individual, or an interactive bonus report if they're both getting bonuses. And we can also look at reports like the support guidelines report. either our worksheet or the DISO master looking one with the results in the center. We can also look in reports at reports like view edit taxes. What is this going to be for? Well, this is really looking at a pro forma tax return for the current tax year. So it's projected for this year based on the information that you entered or that your client entered. And then it can also look at future years. So when this program was designed, it was designed for attorneys and financial planners and advisors. And we have the ability, if we go into assumptions, to say how many years out in the future we want to look for projections, cash flow, and net worth, and so on. We can go out up to 50 years. So if I do that and then go back to that view edit taxes, you can see what their tax returns would look like 20, 30, 50 years from now. Any tax law changes that are already in the law, like the sunsetting of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, personal tax provisions are already built into the program. Other changes that haven't been made yet by the government, obviously we don't know those, but we'll put them in as soon as they're passed. We're usually pretty quick about that. And then you can go and look at here in this particular report, you're going to see all their income deductions, the itemized and the tax credits. And then you'll see what they are allowed to take and what they aren't allowed to take, what's refundable and not refundable, and the impact it has on the taxes. And then we also will have the average federal tax rate, which is the tax rate on all the income. And we have the marginal federal tax break, which is the highest bracket for each party. Some other reports that we have, which are very cool. If you go into more reports, you'll be able to see a whole list of reports. Things like liquidations to cover negative cash flow in our projections, or accumulated savings. Any of these reports that either rely on projections or on the current information being accurate, you just want to make sure that you have the information. So what assumptions are being used in the information? We can use the assumptions that are program-wide, or there are assumptions when we enter data for each item of income and expense. So for example, in a wage income, let's go up to wages. We can go into more information on the wage. And here we can say, what is that wage? Are they going to increase? Is it going to increase at a certain rate? Is it going to increase the same as inflation? Or is it not going to increase at all? And of course, that will change your projections. So as you're learning the program, you can play around with those and see what the options are for you. Now let's talk about, once you've entered the data in, what you can do with it, besides just running your support report and filling out your forms, your declarations, and the judicial council forms. So in terms of support, we can look at different options, because there are some things that will, for example, change what the support would be. So let's add a scenario. And let's just change the overnights. So let's say it's going to be 190 overnights for Cherry and 175 for Barry. And then we want to change their tax status. So say he's going to be single. And then you can see that the support amount has changed, right? And we don't have spousal support checked on this one yet, so it's not changing it. But so you can see side by side what different things would do. And then we also have some more reports like what is the best use of the exemptions. If they're fighting about them, we can look at what the best application of that is. And then we can go into, for example, towards the end of the year. I know it's only July, but in another couple of months, we're going to be looking at, do we want to get them divorced this year or next year? So we can look at best filing status in 2022. And we have a whole explanation of how that is going to work best for the parties. In other words, what are they as a family going to save? But it'll also give you their individual amounts, which can be very helpful. This support impact report, I call the short detail report, and it's going to give you sort of the flow of here's their income before, here's support and alimony. Now, after support, that's what they're going to have, and their percentages of combined income. You can show the living expenses, or we can take them out in the options for that report. So it just ends there. Now, if you want a little more detail, we have an expanded report that gives you more detail on how the income came in and where it's going in terms of taxes and support. You can also look at a graph. Here's what income looks like before, and here's what it looks like after. We gave both of them a lot of income here, so it's an interesting change, right? And maybe in this case, if you represent Barry, he's not going to like that. And maybe that's when you go back to what if for child support and say, okay, well, what if he has more parenting time, or, whatever the scenarios might be for how that support gets impacted. Now let's talk about spousal support. So in this case, we don't have spousal support because they both have income. So let's take out some of the income. Let's go into income, and let's just take out Sherry's income here and see what happens when we go into analysis. And let's talk about spousal support. So we could go into a quick report under more in the spousal support section and go to more report and go to the first one here, spousal support break even. And this will tell you how much alimony or spousal support the recipient will need to break even on their expenses and their own income. Okay, so that is the break-even report. Sometimes that's a place to start for alimony, but maybe not. So we can go to meeting recipient need, which is actually saying what is the desired amount of the recipient's after-tax income. So you pick a target, and then you'll say, what do I need to get to that target? So let's make this one 80,000 of after-tax income, and she would need 3,000 to break even there to get to 80,000 of after-tax income. At 50,000 a year, she would need $762 a month in alimony. And then you can show the short detail report or an expanded report to see that information. And you can print any of those reports, any of these pages, or PDF. We can also do it. A lot of people will look at percentage of income and say, what do I need to get to a certain percentage? So here, let's do it the other way. If we wanted Cherry to have 50% of the after-tax income, she would need $61 a month. But if we wanted her to have 1/3 of the after-tax income, Barry would need $1,300 a month. And we could do that for whatever percentages. We can show other columns, and you can see the short report or the detailed report, the expanded report, to see what that looks like. So that's a very handy one. We can also do a present value. So you can either use the actual support, or you can put in any number and it'll give you the amount of present value. So what are our variables for this calculation? Well, the monthly amount and the duration, and then the pre-tax interest rate. And the pre-tax interest rate, we are using a 20-year T-bond rate. And that does change periodically, lately, every time the feds meet. But that 20-year rate is a fairly conservative rate. You can use any rate you choose. And because we no longer are really looking at taxes other than in California, the state tax figures into this, but we can look at different interest rates. So maybe you want to do 3.00 and you'll get a different amount than if it was 3.10. And you can play around with those numbers as well. Now, once you know what the maintenance amount, spousal support amount that you want is, you go back into enter data, and you can go into support data and go down to the very last section, spousal support to use, on the support data page. Open that up, and you'll see that here at number 3, we can put in the amount and duration of spousal support. So right now it's blank. We can put in our number here. If you want the formula, then you can put in at 2, you can click to use the calculated value and choose the county, and it will give you the calculated value for that county. Okay. Or you can uncheck that box and put in the amount that you want to put in, to want to use. And then this is the amount the program will use for the support calculations. Okay. So we went over the enter data. We looked at footnotes and more information. We looked at doing it the way that DissoMaster does, in the Disso format, or our own way, either quick or complete. We looked at putting in income and expense, assets and debts, and we looked at the client data entry. We've now looked at analysis for support and for spousal support. Let's look at property division. So there's several ways to do property division. First is when you're putting in the assets and debt information in the program. Slide to the top of the page here. You can put data entry options for this page. You can open that up and select at number 3 a default percentage to, generally it's the first party. It is the first party, whatever you've named them. And then you have 3 choices. You can do no default. You can do 50-50, meaning every asset will be divided 50-50, or you can go by title. 100% of the asset will go to who you have the title owner, or if it's joint, it'll go 50-50. Now, this will only apply to new assets. So I already have a real estate property in here. And so if I change that selection, I have it selected now to go, entered now to go 40% to Cherry. If I change this to 50-50, it is not going to change this asset allocation. It's only going to change if I add a new asset to the program. So you would want to make this selection at the beginning of the case before you enter the data. Second way to do allocation is to do it asset by asset and just go through and allocate each asset and liability to the parties as you choose. However, that is not my favorite way. I go to the analysis tab and I go to the property section and I go to divide property. And what that does for me is it gives me a list of all the assets and liabilities. And I can show a bar chart, which would show me if there were any that were unallocated. And then I can just go through and decide who's going to get what and how much. I can do it either by dollar amount, and it'll automatically calculate the percentages, or I can do it by percentage, and it'll automatically calculate the dollar amounts. And you can do that for all the assets, and you'll see a running total here of what they're getting. Now, this is now being divided 45-55, but I want a 50-50 allocation. So what do I have to do to get to 50-50? I can click this first option, show how far they are from 50-50 or any target percentage. And here I can say 50%, and it will automatically tell me how much I need to move to get to that target percentage. Now, either I can leave that as an equalization payment that Barry is now going to have to pay Cherry $33,299 to get to a 50-50, or I can move something over that would give me that amount of dollars. So let's say I'm going to do that. So 75,000 instead of what I had before. And whoops, wrong side of the equation. Sorry. Okay, so now we're going to add another 100,000 here. So now we're down to 6,000 difference. I can move something else around, or I can leave it. Okay, anybody saying to themselves right now, oh, wait a minute, you did that with an IRA. That's not fair because that's going to be taxed, right? Did you think that? I hope you did. We have a divide property on an after-tax basis page, which automatically calculates two different kinds of taxes. We have the marginal tax rate at retirement, and we have a current capital gains rate. So for the current capital gains rate, that's going to rely on there being basis information. Otherwise, we can't really accurately calculate what the capital gains is going to be. But if we did, there would be capital gains on certain assets. And then we also can look at the marginal tax rate at retirement for retirement assets. And then that is going to take into account those assumptions that we talked about earlier. So we know what the income is, so we know what rate they're being taxed at retirement. And you can see here what that rate is going to be. And you can see an after-tax value for those assets. So you can figure out if you want to do an offset of retirement funds. And if you want to gross that up, we have that information, or net it down, as the case may be. So you can go to the divide property and move things around. You can also do it on the after-tax basis. One other thing I'll show you in divide property, you guys in California do it less than other states, but you can show subtotals for asset classes. So maybe you want to do 50-50 on retirement and a different allocation for non-retirement assets, and you can see how that works, or, you know, something different on the debt, whatever your options are. So we have that as well. And then here we can also do, like we could in the support page, side-by-side scenarios. So you can say, what if he gets this and she gets that, or she gets this and she gets that, whatever the choices are, and you can move things around and see at the top what that result is going to be. And you can label each scenario. So I have these scenarios, just weird labels. I don't know what I was doing there. So let's make this one 56-43, and this one is 45-55, and this one is, let's say 49. So I'm just going to do this 45, 55. Okay, so we've got different scenarios here, and I've labeled them because you can swap them. So let's say that this scenario 2 is the one that the parties like in a mediation or collaborative or your negotiated settlement. I can go to the actual column and swap for scenario 2, and it's going to literally flip those two columns. And now the actual is that 56-43, and you don't have to go back and move anything. Now, when you go to the report for marital property division, that's what's going to show in the report, is that division. And when you're doing those swaps, and that's why I suggest labeling them, you can swap any one for any one. So maybe now you're going to print this, but you want to put it in a different order. So I'm going to swap scenario 2 for scenario 3. So now they're in this order: 56, 45, 45, 49. Okay, whatever order you want them in. And by labeling them with whatever labels you want, you can change values, you can change who gets it, you can move things around like that as easily as possible. And that will help you to come up with the best settlements for your clients. Okay. I don't see any questions. Any questions in the chat? Okay. So let's keep going. We've got some more features here that I want to show you. There's a lot of stuff in this program. So let's go into enter data again. And we're going to go down here to pension plans and open this one up. And it's also in assets and debts, same thing. And you can get the program to give you a present value of the plan. So if we go into more information, you're going to put in the facts, the birth date, gender, the age of retirement or the date of retirement, and the benefit amount, if there's any COLA adjustment. And you can also, we have a special CalSTRS calculation for all of you guys. And you just have to check this box, and it's going to use the CalSTRS calculation. And then, which is a simple COLA, but a different kind of COLA. So that will be put in there. And there are two main variables other than the facts. You're going to have an interest rate. And again, if you click on discount rate, we have a description of what we use for that rate and how you change it. And the other option, the other variable is going to be which mortality table you use. And we have a bunch of different mortality tables in there. We have some short explanations. And then if you want more information, you click on more information here, and it's give you a little more explanation of each one. And that can be helpful. Remember, we're not actuaries unless some of you are. So any plan value is just a guess. It's based on assumptions. And sometimes if clients get too focused on the value, because this is not real money, this is a stream of payments that is going to come, assuming somebody lives long enough to get them. And you can change the mortality table or change the interest rate and see how it's going to impact the pension value, which is eye-opening for a lot of clients. We also calculate the coverage fraction. So you put the date started, the date married, the cutoff date, take it up to this year. And now we've got our coverage fraction. And you can actually click on the calculation so you can see that coverage fraction calculation. Sometimes in divorce cases, that number comes in handy for other purposes as well. We use it sometimes for things we shouldn't, but it's a nice handy number. And then if you've gone out far enough, which in this case we went out 50 years, I can show what the payments are to both parties if I have allocated the pension. So here we've allocated 50-50 on the marital portion. So I can see what that stream of payments is going to be for each party. And you can see that the numbers are different for each party because there's a non-marital portion, which is going to the party that owns the plan, that has that non-marital interest. So that's our pension plans. We also do support arrears. Very simple to put in the obligation. If you have more obligations, you can click special situations and put in more obligations. If they made regular payments for a period of time, great. If they made some regular payments but missed a couple, you can put the missed ones here and it'll take them out of that stream of payments. You can put in the one-time, get out of jail payments that they made or the tax intercepts, and then you will get the results and you can do a great report of the total amount. And then you can do it for each obligation. And if that's not enough detail, you can see the calculation of the interest due on a monthly basis. And you can see how accurate this is for each month, whether there's 30, 31, or 28 days in that month. We're calculating a per diem amount and multiplying it. So that support arrears is a great tool in that situation. Okay, any questions? We have one in the Q&A. If you propose marginal tax rate for dividing retirement and you get pushback that effective tax rates should be used, what's my reaction? My reaction is they probably don't really know the difference between that. Anna, do you have any insight into that question?
I do not. We would have to ask Brenda, our tax expert.
Well, here's the thing. Really, what are you talking about for the retirement? Are they the first dollars in, or are they part of all the dollars in at that point? So the effective tax rate, meaning the overall tax rate, might be more accurate if the retirement asset is the only asset that they're going to have paying out at that point. And if not, then maybe it's the idea would be to use the other one. That's more of a judgment call. And you can explain it to them, Lori. I know you understand it. And sometimes they don't understand what those two different rates are. Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? I know some of you have been at my presentations before, so this is review for you, and some of you are new attendees, so please feel free to ask questions, and I can show you different parts of the program. We've only done an overview here. Couple of things to recognize too is that when you need help, we have several different support options. We have FAQs and training videos on our website. We also have program help and a quick start guide. Sometimes be patient with us. We change the program faster than we can change all the support material because we're a small company. We don't have all of that help for these. And the other thing that you could do, of course, is go into program help itself and search for a term, and you'll get some help when you do that. So there was a question on the bonus calculation. So let's just look at an individual bonus report. So do we want to show child support and spousal support? And do we want to show monthly or annual? So let's show annual, and let's show both child and spousal support. It's not probably going to change spousal support unless I go in and select for spousal support that we use the formula, because otherwise it's just not going to automatically recalculate. So we'll do that. We'll use the Santa Clara formula. And now when I go back to the bonus report, okay, for Cherry, what's the lowest bonus? Let's say it's 10,000, and we'll make the highest bonus 50,000. And what increments do we want to look at? Let's look at, we'll make it simple, $10,000 increments. Are we discounting the calculated support? No, that's not. So we'll look at that bonus report. So the idea is, as the bonus amount goes up, then the amount of dollars changes, the percent changes. And you can see here that the spousal support didn't really kick in until we were at the highest bonus level, right? Because we put in high income in this case. Now let's look at if we went to the bonus report and do a two-way bonus report. It gets a little more complicated, right? So we're going to have a bonus for one person. So let's say, we'll say bonus, and this is Cherries, and the annual amount is, let's just make it easy, $10,000. Or you can do it with the amounts. Let's just say in March, she got her bonus for the year before, okay? And then let's do a second bonus and make this berries. And let's say the annual amount here is also 10,000. And it's just going to be a feature. Oh, I know. Yeah. It's just going to be a 10,000 amount. Actually, let's do it that the amount's going to be in December. All right. And now we've got the two-way bonus, and it figures out both parties' changes in support and nets them, and it'll give you what the change is over the course of the year, for the whole year. Okay, so that is the bonus report. You can do it for each individual party or a two-way report, which nets the two different bonuses as if that were added into income for the support calculation from the beginning because we're using a form of income shares in California. Okay. So I think that answered the questions. I hope that answered your question. And that is, unless you have any more questions, that's our seminar for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Please let me know if there's any other questions you have until our next training, which will be next month. We're more than happy to answer questions at any time. And you know how to get a hold of me. I know Lori does. And you can always reach us. I'm nancy.schaefer@familylawsoftware.com. And Anna is anna.tate, T-A-I-T-T. And Anna has only one N, @familylawsoftware.com. Thank you for joining us.